How would you describe the origin story of your business?
So I've always wanted to be my own kind of boss. I know that's a typical thing for most people, but it's extremely typical for designers. I think designers, especially if you've worked in house as long as I have, you get tired of kind of the ins and outs of being an in house designer, especially if you're in an environment where it's either just you or you're one of two or three. And that has been my reality for a while. And I have a very specific, very intense relationship with design. I don't want to call it a love-hate relationship, but
Okay.
we are there's a point of contention sometimes with design because you have to juggle the end user, the client, and sometimes that middle person. And those things don't always mix well. So I decided that, or the universe decided that it was time for me to um, sever out the middle person and focus on being that designer that I want to be and to grow at my pace. So Pink Paradox Design Co. is starting as a branding agency. I want to focus on queer owned, black owned, IPOC. The, we're making we're making acronyms. IPOC owned, accomplice owned businesses that are valued aligned. I want to focus on helping them with their visibility, with establishing their brand identity and reinforcing it. Because a powerful brand is a powerful messenger. And I think if your goal is social good, then you need that kind of support. So I'm really looking forward to being able to partner with those future collaborators. Once I get this off the ground, there are a lot of moving pieces here. I think the other piece of Pink Paradox, there are three pieces. The first is the branding. The second is community. I think it's important for designers, especially those who have worked in house, to understand that they're not alone. I've gone to several conferences where designers will talk about their strives. They'll talk about how much they are stressed out because no one at their job understands what they do. If they do, they have a very narrow understanding, and it can be really isolating. So, a part of what I want to do is to build a community to talk about some of those obstacles, give advice on how you might overcome them. And if I don't have those answers, which 8 times out of 10, I do not, invite people who do have those experiences and that advice. A podcast series called the Stray Pixel Podcast will be like a tangential entity, football, Pink Paradox. So that'll be the space where we gather and talk about some of those things and how we might shift people's understanding of design in professional spaces. I'm also going to launch a social media strategy that focuses on educating those who hire designers on what to expect and what to look for rather than giving this blanket, like, we want you to come in and do everything because that's really exhausting and could lead to burnout. And then the third and final part of being paradox is to focus on my queer identity. I do think that there's a unique intersection about being a queer Black man. There's still a lot of homophobia within the Black community. There's a lot of internal homophobia within those who are queer and Black, but want to be straight presenting because they don't want to face the ire of society. They don't want to be isolated. No one does. And I want to celebrate that. The whole idea behind the name Pink Paradox is that I am a queer man, a queer Black man that society says shouldn't exist. My logo mark is a skull because thinking specifically about the story where my aunt told me I shouldn't wear this hoodie that had skulls all over it to church. And I'm like, I want to be rebellious. Like, I want to exist the way that I want to exist. And
That's
no
right.
one tell me how to show up. And I really want to create apparel and spaces and conversations about being a queer Black man. So that third facet is really going to be me selling some apparel design that is very celebratory, and then offer a space for folks to come in and maybe create their own and collaborate on their own things that celebrate Blackness and queerness. I had this idea before I bought this shirt, but this shirt definitely, it says "Let
Oh,
Firm Opinions." One of my favorite podcasts. I hate to shout out another podcast on the
no,
podcast.
it's okay. It's okay. Cause if you have resources, if you have like things that, that affirm you, that you go to, we want to share that with other folks. So go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Word. Pod Save America. If you're not a political junkie like me, you probably have no idea what that is. But I do encourage you to check them out. This particular shirt or their Pride or Else collection goes to helping, I believe, trans youth get the care that they need. So I'm sure they would love if you were to purchase some of those items there on media.com. But their apparel line for the Pride Month definitely reinforced my desire to do the same thing. I'm curious how I might be able to impact queer spaces. But once I get to a certain point, I would want to be able to donate to queer causes or queer businesses, despite what the Supreme Court might say about that.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm interested in that because I think that there's power in uplifting and celebrating uh, those different queer spaces.
I want to say thanks. There are a few things that you shared, I think, that resonate with me, even my rationale behind wanting to do this project. Before I go into what I heard, I'll say, one, thank you for making your experiences accessible. So you're describing like you're building this thing right now. You're actively in the act of doing it. And I think there's something really powerful, there's something really special, really important about making our experiences accessible. It's one of those things that foundational things that kind of grounded. One of the reasons why I want to do this is because I've even had my own experiences with this too, but sometimes that tendency where we'll see folks who have accomplished things and we're like, oh, wow, that's so great. And we didn't necessarily see the journey to get there. And sometimes we'll look at folks in a way that can cause it to feel like what they've done is so unattainable to us. And really wanted to support folks in recognizing the journey piece and that we can enter and remain in this work using the gifts that are special to us and support others and using their gifts. So there's room enough for everybody to contribute. But definitely wanted to thank you and affirm you in making your experiences accessible because I know there's someone out there right now who may want to start, who may be stuck in this place of it could be decision fatigue, it could be contemplation, but recognizing or hearing from you the ways that you're starting, the ways that you're moving can be something that really inspires folks into action. It affirms them too. Hey, I'm at this place right now. I'm building this and it'll grow and progress as I go along. So there's that piece I want to affirm you for. And then also the feeling of community that you're trying to create through your work and supporting folks and feeling less alone. That's also something that is so important. I've talked about this even by reaching out to you. Oppression thrives in isolation. So there's
Mhm.
something in that loneliness that can cause us to feel like, oh, this is just us, or there's no one I can talk to about this thing. And so I really feel like what you're doing is shedding light on that. And then lastly, at least for now, you talked about your identities and you talked about homophobia that exists still in spaces and internalized oppression as well. And supporting folks and recognizing and hearing and learning about like the ways that we resist that internalized oppression and the ways that we, interrupt and break up that homophobia within the communities as well is important. So just several things that you shared, just wanted to affirm you and doing that and just knowing that there's someone listening who will be deeply touched and validated by what you're sharing here today. Just wanted to affirm you in that. Thank you as we go. Like seriously, making those experiences accessible. You mentioned something about sometimes folks may not have somebody to talk to, right? Didn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hey, I appreciate you coming and sharing your journey of building and becoming this business that you're doing.
To that last piece, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. Go.
Well, I think it's very clear, and I'm okay with admitting this, that I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. I
Mhm.
do have familiarity with branding. I do have familiarity with brand strategy. I've never built a business from scratch. I struggle with the idea of selling my stuff to other people, but I didn't know how to design when I started. I didn't know what topic to write for my manifesto when I started that project. I don't even think it was a manifesto to begin with. The one thing that design has taught me is that it's okay to start broad and wide. Nothing is predetermined, and you don't know what it is that you'll build in the end until you start. It doesn't matter how chaotic it feels. It doesn't matter how ambitious it is. The goal is to set something for yourself and to work towards that. It can feel chaotic and unstable. That's fine. That's a part of the process. But eventually, and if your heart is in it, which mine is, you'll get to a point where things will become more structured and become a lot less chaotic and more systematic.
I'm glad you also talked a little bit about the story behind the name Peak Paradox Design Co. and the significance of that. Could you say more about the mission of Pink Paradox Design Co. and what messages you hope to convey through your actions?
So I actually rewrote the mission statement like 2 days ago. I changed
Perfect.
it manifesto statement because I think mission is too corporate for what I'm trying to achieve. But I'll read it verbatim. We at Pink Paradox Design Co. are committed to partnering and uplifting queer owned, Black owned, IPOC owned, or accomplice owned businesses that are valued aligned in their effort to combat and dismantle inequity in our society. We believe in providing our partners with design strategies that will impact their visibility, success, and overall impact on the common good. Our promise to you is that we will never surrender our values, even when times get tough and things look bleak. We will always stand by you in the fight for a more equitable society.
What I really appreciated just now about hearing your manifesto statement is I feel like what's different from most statements that I hear and what you've said, you were talking directly to the people that you're trying to serve. And then also you're naming and talking directly to them, you're naming your commitments to them as well.
Yeah.
So I just even listening to that, that just felt really powerful, really significant to me. Could you say a little bit more about the intention of that when you crafted that? I know you just said, oh, yeah, I wrote this again. I rewrote it 2 days ago. And just thinking that's not an accident in the way that you crafted that, right?
Right.
There's some intention
No.
behind this. So talk a little bit about the why behind why you wrote it in that way, because I thought that was pretty powerful. You're talking directly to the people and you're letting them know these are our commitments to you.
So that's design. So it's specifically that way because in design, one of our biggest practices, and I think this is why design thinking is very important for all business entities or social entities, whatever. You got to know who you're talking to. You can't shape a message without knowing who your audience is. If you don't have a clear understanding of who you're trying to talk to, then your message will be muddled. I wanted to be very intentional about who it is that I want to serve. And notice how I don't use the word ally because I don't do that. I don't need an ally. I don't need someone cheering me on from the sidelines. I need active in
That's
this
right. That's right.
change.
That's right.
And I want to make sure that the people that I'm serving know that I'm here for them because the whole point, or not the whole point, but 98% of Pink Paradox is about building intentional community. If I'm not naming them by name, then they're like, oh, this might not be for me. No, this is for you. If you fall under one of these categories, this is for you. I want you to know that you have somewhere to go, especially in light of things like the 404 creative decision where the Supreme Court allowed businesses to turn away queer people for their identity, a protected class under the 14th Amendment, I might add.
Mhm.
Uh, I want those people to know that, yes, there are businesses out there that are bigoted, that are hateful, and they don't want to serve you. That's not okay, but you have alternative. You have creative spaces that are specifically designed for you. Take advantage of those and build community there because you can build a stronger community with love than you can with hate.
So I feel like you've gone into it, but the messages that you hope to convey through your actions,
Yeah.
I feel like you laid that out.
Fight this fight.
How do you ensure that Pink Paradox will remain aligned with its core values and commitments?
I'm about to pull an old folk line out of my back pocket. I'm
Okay.
not gonna be too big for my britches. I'm not. I've seen how money corrupts people, and I never want to get to that space. So, yes, money is a priority, obviously, for a business. I want to make money, bills. I gotta eat. I'm a little materialistic. I'm naming all those things, but I never want to get to a point where money is so much of my focus that it takes me away from what my actual goal is. And I don't think it ever will, because no amount of money will ever get me to sacrifice my values, because my values are what I built this this idea on. And the minute they're gone, the business doesn't exist. So if I want to stay in business, these values are staying with me. That's the
Mhm.
first thing. I think the second thing, I'm in the middle of reading this really amazing book by this design consultant named Emily Cohen. And it's basically just a book on how to run a creative business. And one of the things she talks about is staying true to yourself, staying true to your business, and staying true to the people that you made a commitment to, your audience, and approaching all of those aspects with love. Um, because without that, your business will fail. And I don't think that that just applies to the design space. I think that applies for businesses widely. But for me, understanding that my values are what undergird and what serve as the strong foundation for this business, understanding the importance and not forgetting that is how I plan on moving and maintaining my values. Those ain't going nowhere.
Those ain't going nowhere.